Right, we're doing it. We're giving it one more try. Adidas Nemeziz. We're going with the 0.1, not the 19.1, because it does have the additional texture. This is the Nemeziz's can't say that. The Nemeziz's final chance to win a boot battle. I believe this is boot battle number 4 the Nemeziz has been a part of. It has lost every single boot battle, despite being basically my favorite boot on the market. I am a little bit in love with this boot. Today, we're gonna put it head to head with the Phantom GT Elite. So the two textured boots from the two brands, and no, I'm not including the Predator here because that's an entirely different type of feeling on the ball. It's not just a simple texture. We're gonna go GT versus Nemeziz, the agility boot, if you will, that kind of middle boot. Oh, I don't know. I just want to put the GT versus the Nemeziz because the Nemeziz got this fancy schmancy new texturing on the upper, and I want to see if it holds up against the GT and see if I can finally get a win for my beloved Nemeziz. Roll the intro. What's up guys, James here from BootWizard Boot Reviews. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all staying safe. I know a lot of us are back in lockdown. So just real quick, do remember to like the video, get subscribed to the channel, and you can pre-predict who you think is going to win this particular boot battle. If you've not seen a boot battle before, quick rundown for you. Multiple rounds. Rounds are scored like a boxing match, 10 points to the winner, 9 points to the loser. Person with the most points at the end on my scorecard wins. Yes, it is my scorecard. If you disagree with me, feel free to do so. That's what this is all about. Let's get on with it and let's talk about the upper, because yeah, with the changes in the Nemeziz, it's probably the most important thing to talk about. Most interesting, at least. Onwards! Okay, uppers. So we'll start with the Nemeziz, which is this torsion tape upper. This is these big strips of tape that run all the way around the boot and they make up the upper. And it's a similar system to what they've used on all of the Nemeziz models since its inception. And you know what? This is definitely the best version. It has some overlap in it, but it is minimal and it gives you quite a solid feel while also being very barefoot. So it's kind of punchy and barefoot all at the same time. And that is two things that I am absolutely okay with. There's very little in the way of liner here. It's very much all based on the tape, the way that's constructed, and then a top layer that has been added to it, kind of a top coating. That can make the upper a little bit stiff, but it does break in over time. The new addition is, of course, these textured areas, which I've described as being similarly positioned to what you would have expected from the Predator LZ. You've got some in kind of a strike zone up here, a pass zone through here. It's these gold areas, if you can see them. And then you've got a little kind of touch area through the front, and then you've got a dribble zone down the lateral side of the boot. And if I'm being honest, they don't do a great deal. The Nemeziz has been kind of historically a little bit of a slick boot in the 19 range, so they don't do it any harm. They are a welcome addition. They don't add to the stiffness of the boot at all. They don't take away from the barefoot touch, which kind of is my way of saying they're fine, but they don't do a huge amount. So don't expect miracles or big changes to your touch. The GT certainly has a more tactile, sticky feeling to it as a result of the GT generative texture that has been added. Now that's not necessarily because of the little pills themselves, but actually because of the tactile and kind of tacky sensation you get off the boot, especially through the midfoot area. You can feel it in hand and it's more noticeable on feet than on the Nemeziz, and I think it's very positive. This again has gone through a whole process where Nike have said they've computer generated the best areas where you're going to contact the ball and how these little pills are arranged. We've heard it 100 million times. It's not that interesting, and if I'm being honest, I'm not even sure that it makes a huge amount of difference. Just take a look at the Nike swoosh here, right in the middle of the boot, in the middle of a key contact zone, and the GT is completely changed just for the sake of aesthetics. So how important can this have all been? However, when compared to the Nemeziz, the texture on the ball, the way that affects your touch, it's definitely better. We can then talk about how much softer it is as well. This is a much softer boot than the Nemeziz is straight out of the box and once it breaks in. So it's much more comfortable, and it still delivers a very barefoot touch because it is, again, similarly to the Nemeziz, a very simple boot. It's just one layer of material. There's a liner on the inside of this one with the GT on top, and it's a simple free sensation, and it's very uninterrupted with a little bit of a tacky feeling on top. There's nothing really wrong with that. It's also not particularly groundbreaking, but I like it. I think it's pretty good. But if we put the two head to head, which is the entire purpose of what we're doing here, which one should take the win? Now, the GT does have a couple of problems that are mainly related to how the fit and comfort are. It does play from the upper, but it's fit and comfort round, so we're not really going to take them into consideration here. And because the GT is softer, it's a little bit more comfortable. It still gives you a barefoot touch, despite it not being quite as sharp as the Nemeziz. And because the texture, the GT on this, is more effective, I'm going to give the win to the GT. We're going to call it 10-9. Not really much wrong with the Nemeziz here, but I think when you start to break it down, GT probably has to take the win. Come on, Nemeziz, come on, you're already losing. Next up, your traction. We will start with the GT this time, flipping that over, and you've got kind of a semi-split sole. So it's a split sole with a strengthening bar down the lateral side, which is a new thing, something very interesting, and something I'm sure we'll see Nike use going forwards as well, just to give extra support, kind of like some kind of cage or skeleton in there, which is an interesting concept. This has some chevron bladed studs through key areas to give you a more aggressive traction, particularly up in these toe areas here where the whole stud pattern feels like it's been pushed that little bit further forward. That's absolutely not a bad thing, because what it does is it makes the whole boot feel that little bit more aggressive, pushes you onto your toes a little bit more. Then the conical studs have actually been split, and that does make them feel a little bit more aggressive too, and you get good rotational movement, even if it is maybe overly aggressive for that typical central midfielder's boot. Hamilton's come to play with the laces on my boots. Thanks, Hamilton. Can we? Cats, man, cats. Moving on to the Nemeziz, you still get a split sole with this, and it is a bit stiffer and more stable through the midfoot and the heel. You view this in a positive or negative light. The whole sole plate is a little bit stiffer, could be described as being a bit too stiff, and it does make the whole boot feel a tiny bit bottom heavy, if I'm being honest. But that stiffness and rigidity through the heel and the midfoot makes this boot feel a lot more responsive than the GT. The problem more comes in the forefoot, where you want it to maybe just give a little bit more, and maybe if it is stiff, get a little bit more energy return, but it's not bad in the slightest. This is also better for rotational movement. You've got more conical and oval studs that run throughout the boot, as opposed to the chevron blades that you get on the GT. So it's less aggressive, but better for kind of those quick movements or those rotational movements. So that's very much a case of what do you prefer? I think in this instance, when you're putting them head to head, purely because the Nemeziz can be considered to be a little bit too stiff from heel to toe, I think the GT sole plate is something that more people are likely to enjoy, even if I might be swayed to go for the Nemeziz, maybe, possibly. I'll keep thinking. But anyway, I think for this instance, I'm going to give it a 10-9 victory to the Phantom GT. It's just a little bit more refined. It's a little bit more thought put into it, and it doesn't really affect the boot negatively in any way. In fact, it's probably one of the best things about the boot, whereas it definitely has flaws in the Nemeziz, and it doesn't add to the boot in as much of a positive light. Like, this would probably have been far more successful without a split sole and with a lighter single piece construction sole plate, in my opinion. So it's a 10-9 win for the GT, and we will move on to the next category. Next up, the scales are out, and we are going to be looking at the weight. On the whole, lightest boot tends to win these, and with the style of boot these are, I'd probably be happy enough going with that. The Nemeziz, so this one is coming in at 207 grams. This is in a UK 7.5, a US 8. 207 grams there. And then we're going to take the Phantom GT, pop that on the scales, and that's coming in at 194 grams in a UK 7, US 8. And so you can see that the GT is slightly lighter, but if I'm being honest, I'm not going to award a victory either way here. We're going to call this a 10-all draw because they're very, very similar. The only negative in weight terms I've already mentioned, and it is the fact that you could say that there's too much weight in the sole plate of the Nemeziz and it's a bit unbalanced. But in terms of just pure how much do they weigh, there's nothing to complain about either way here. So it's a draw, 10-all. Okay, next up, value for money. This doesn't mean the cheapest one wins. This means that the one you get the most for your money wins. And there is a price discrepancy here. We're talking £180, 200 euros for the Nemeziz 0.1. And we are also talking £220 for the Phantom GT Elite, and there is even a more expensive version with the dynamic fit collar. I don't recommend buying that one because honestly it makes no difference to the boot and you pay extra for a little piece of fly knit that just runs up out of the boot. It doesn't do anything. There's definitely no ankle support there. But that does mean the Nemeziz is cheaper. Does that mean it's better value for money? And realistically, in this instance, because of the size of the discrepancy and the fact you're still getting a very good top-end football boot for significantly less money, despite the fact they're both very expensive, I'm giving the win to the Nemeziz, clear and easy. This is better value for money at full retail. Now, of course, we're comparing full retail here. You can get both of these on some pretty amazing sales at the moment. I'll find some of the best prices. I've put them down in the top comments so you can pick them up if you would like to. But it's a 10-9 win to the Nemeziz for me because £40 is a lot of money, and that's how much the Nemeziz is cheaper, and it's definitely worth considering if you want to save a couple of pennies. Okay, category I don't always do on its own because I usually mention it throughout other categories and blend them together, but I think it's worth mentioning here because there is quite a big discrepancy, and if this is something that you really value, then it's worth having a particular section for it, and this is for lockdown and responsiveness. Two things that kind of go hand in hand. They have their own elements, but here, the GT has no real structural support to the upper of the boot. It's very, very free, and that does lend it to being not the most responsive boot that you're ever going to pick up, and it also means it's not the most locked in. The off-center lacing system doesn't really help that, and it's not a problem for me either way with the boot. But if you're looking for serious amounts of locked-in responsiveness, this probably isn't the boot to go for, and you should probably go and pick up the Mercurial if you want something like this that's super locked in and super responsive. The Nemeziz, however, is, I think, super underrated for its lockdown and its responsiveness. I think that this is more locked in and more responsive from the upper, at least, than what you would pick up from the Ghosted line. It's definitely more locked in. And then in terms of the responsiveness from the outsole, the Ghosted gives you a really fantastic feeling of the boot kind of springing you off and firing you from side to side and going with you. So it feels very responsive, but it's at a cost of quite a stiff upper that isn't quite so locked in. And I think this has really fantastic lockdown and responsiveness while combining it with great comfort, which we'll cover in just a second. So I really wanted to bring that up, and it's a 10-9 win to the Nemeziz here, basically without question. Lockdown and responsiveness. This is actually a fantastic, fantastic football boot. We're going to do it, Nemeziz. You're going to win. Maybe. Come on, please. And our final category, fit and comfort. And both boots do have their issues and their standout elements here. And we'll start with the GT, which, if you are looking for a wide-fitting football boot that feels a bit like a Mercurial, well, here it is. Look at all of the material here. You can get boats in here. This is a very, very wide football boot, and it's perfect for anybody that does have those wider feet. The width combined with this off-center lacing system does mean that the fit suffers a little bit in this area just here, because you end up with a crease and a bit of excess material. But if you've got a foot that can really fill this out, you might manage to avoid that, but it is a shape of the boot that causes it. The GT is also a super comfortable boot because it doesn't have too many restrictions in terms of the way it's constructed. It's quite simple, it's pretty free, it's pretty easy, it'll wrap around your foot. So it does have a shape issue, which kind of leads to a fit issue, and some people have also complained about heel problems. Not me, but it's happened, so it's definitely worth reporting. But it makes up for some of that by being very, very comfortable. So that's a positive. In sizing, I do recommend a lot of people to go down half a size in these particular boots, unless your current boots are already right on the money, or you have a particularly wide foot, then true to size will probably work for you. But moving on to the Nemeziz fit and comfort. This fits true to size straight up. So go with your regular Adidas size in these. Comfort-wise, not as comfortable as the Nemeziz, purely because of the material just being that little, not as comfortable as the GT. Oh, come on, James. Purely because that material is that little bit stiffer, and the boot as a whole is that little bit stiffer through the sole plate, but you feel really locked in, which is a really nice sensation to have. So not quite as comfortable. However, in terms of sizing, the width here is also very, very good. You get a good amount of width through the boot. The last is excellent, and you don't have any of the fit problems that you get with the GT from the weird shape and the extra material. This will fit around and not lose its shape or not give you weird creases. It'll follow the contour of your foot that little bit better. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that the more comfortable of the two is the GT, but that comes at a cost. The better fit of the two, I believe to be the Nemeziz, but that comes at a cost of losing a little bit of comfort. And again, the sole plate does need some work. So it's kind of split down the middle. Personal choice, I would go for the Nemeziz because of the fit. I think is that little bit better, and I'm horribly, horribly biased because I really love this boot and I don't want it to ever go away. But I think we have to kind of pull it straight down the middle here. Comfort, fit, and that makes it a 10-all draw, I think. So 10 apiece, and we will add up the scores. Positives of kind of doing these videos as a stream of consciousness and just my thoughts as they come along is that it gives you a really honest, raw opinion, which I go for. The downside being that I get to the end and I forget what I scored everything, and then I don't know who won. So I'm just gonna go and do some maths, and I'll be right back. I am back, and the maths have been completed, and the score is 68 all. So that gives it a draw. That means that these boots have come out even, and I still can't buy a win for my damn Nemeziz. Anyway, I think that's fairly fair for two boots that are actually quite good but have their problems and do have critics either way, and neither boot's particularly caught on fire or stood out. I think the GT probably has the bigger kind of glaring problems that are going to be problems that some people won't be able to get over, but it also has some elements that are really going to appeal to some people, whereas the Nemeziz kind of just ticks a lot of boxes without being super exceptional in any particular areas. But for me, the touch on the ball really is fantastic. That's all from me here at BootWizard today. Do remember to like the video. Please share it to as many people as possible. Get subscribed for more fantastic content, and let me know down in the comments, how would you have scored this? What would your round scores be? 10-9. I'd be really interested to find out. Importantly, I do want to say stay safe to everybody. There is, of course, the global pandemic still happening, and I don't want any BootWizard subscribers putting themselves into difficult positions. Really try and stay safe, stay at home, be around your loved ones, but take care and protect everybody else. We will get through this. We'll come out the other end. We'll all still be here, and we have to help each other to do that. So stay safe. Message from BootWizard today. And that's all from me. Have a good one, and I'll see you soon.